1. And now we should be live. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Dev Show. Today I'm here with Powell and Andrew, and I think Yori might jump in a little bit. Pop up some names for a moment. Today we're going to be talking about the Unity 2025 roadmap. Some updated stuff came out on the GDC floor and some of the, in this presentation. So we'll talk about some of the exciting things that are coming up in there, or at least the things that we think are interesting and exciting. And then a little bit about what the best things at GDC were, or at least, again, the things that we thought were really interesting and exciting and that you should all know about or might be interested in knowing about. So welcome, guys. Thanks for both coming here. And I see you've got the light going on again, Andrew.
Oh, yeah. Well, I realized this was going to be a fun show, so I turned on the light. Before, there was no light in the background.
And it was all corporate-y and boring, and then you saw Powell's background.
Boring show. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Well, yeah, welcome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, too. Say hi in the chat if you're here, and if you got any questions or think anything was interesting that we should mention or talk about, make sure to share that as well. So getting started, I think we should just dive right into the roadmap and then go into some of the other things, if that's all right with both of you. There were a lot of things that were really interesting, and Powell, you were even mentioning some things that were notably missing from the roadmap as well, some things that had changed. Maybe we should start there with the less exciting part and then get into all the really cool things that were added that I wasn't expecting, though. So you want to kick it off with the thing that stood out to you the most? And I'll switch to this view right here.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was no world building things. Yeah, but looking at who left the company in the last few months, it's one of the teams that was left out. So there will be no world building tools. There won't be, from what I'm seeing, any new terrain system, and we will be still working on that current terrain system that's very similar to things we had in Unity 2. Mostly the only addition was in last few years the terrain tools, but they are also using the same API in the background. And as long as we have the old APIs, we won't be getting any faster terrain.
All right, so I think it's going to stay the same. On the topic of world building, though, I did see the procedural worlds new setup that they have for terrain.
Yeah, the Storm.
Yeah, Storm system. It is really impressive, and I saw a live demo of it doing some insanely big terrains and turning on all the flora and running extremely fast. And it sounds like they've got a way to make it available to indie developers and everybody else in the really near future or even now. So I'm going to talk to him and see if we can get him to come on and share a little bit more about it, because Adam can explain it 1,000 times better than I can. But it was really cool. I remember seeing it last year, and I think that along with some of the other world building tools that are already exist, like JSON booths that are out there, probably the reason that they went away from that.
I think there are two different things here, because the Storm is new solution. Yeah, it's new terrain system that they are building from scratch, and JSON is building on the terrain system that's already inside Unity, and mostly Adam can do more with his new system, but you will have to, I think it will be paid solution that you have to pay all the time to use it, and it's, as always, it's something outside of Unity rather than in Unity job.
Yeah, that was a neat thing. I've only seen that system demoed a couple times in passing when I've met with Adam from Procedure Worlds in at GDC and whatnot when we ran into each other, and looks pretty cool. But what's neat about it is it's a combination of so many things. But one of the core things that people will notice, I think, when they see it, is the frame per second button. Essentially, it's one of those things where you install it and suddenly your frame per second go up, but also your quality goes up. So that's a fun combination.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'll drop a link in chat too, so everybody can check it out if they want to go see it before. But yeah, I'll have to get him on here and just have him run through the demo. I saw a 5-minute demo. I was walking, actually going to grab food. It was right after I left with the Odin guys Brian, and went to go grab food and ran into him in the food court. He was doing demos of Storm sitting there. That's one of the nice things about going to GDC. You go out and everywhere you go, it's just game developers. Like every person you run into, in every store, everybody in those couple blocks is a game developer doing something, and everybody's got their laptops out showing their stuff and sharing stuff. It's really, really cool. And I stumbled on him, got a great 5-minute demo of what it was looking like, and I was really impressed. So yeah, that was one of the things missing, but there's a lot of stuff added as well, right? So maybe we'll go back to this one, and should we just maybe go down from the beginning? I've got my own list of things I think are really interesting, but there's a couple on here that have already been called out that I think are kind of the key ones. The first was that animation system. So there's a new animation system coming. I think it's an additional one, kind of in addition to Mechanim or replacing it. I'm not sure exactly how that's working, but it looked like the big thing that they were calling out in the video was the massive performance, right? They're doing 40,000 units all animating without a frame drop, which obviously you're not getting in Mechanim.
Does that mean it's going to be like ECS based?
It said it was ECS based, but doesn't require entities.
Okay.
So you don't have to switch your workflow and you still get that performance, which sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, that's for someone who has so many animations on the asset store and doesn't necessarily want to have to all of a sudden one day make huge changes to everything. Transitions are nice.
Yeah.
Transitionary periods, I should say. The animation transitions are also nice.
Yeah. Well, I think animation performance will be great if we're getting a nice, good, 40,000 units animating without hitting any performance issues. That's going to be amazing.
Scroll down a little bit on that page to the second animated image. It's a very interesting animation with showing what appears to be the animation in a graph based setup, where, from my interpretation here is that, as the character turns, as the player turns the character, the legs are reacting to that change and whatnot via the scripting setup in this graph, I would suppose.
Yeah, check that out. It does look pretty interesting.
So that's interesting. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, if I'm creating a human character, I've got human characters on the asset store. Is this something that I would set up as the asset publisher? Or is this something that I'm like, as most animator controllers are today, something that the end user should set up for their particular use case and system? And I wonder how that comes into play, and the difference between the two. Because right now, just as a backstory, there are a lot of people who will buy my stuff and say, where's the animator controller? Where's the controller? And I'm like, well, you got to set up your own because your game's unique, right? And you're probably going to have a lot more animations. And then there's still a lot of people who feel like the human characters need to come with hundreds of animations. And I'm like, yeah, but there's so many out there already that are better, perhaps. So why would I spend my time doing that?
Okay. So yeah, I'm curious too, because I would like it if ideally, you could just drop in any character and there's at least some preset set of things moving around, like basic locomotion and basic interaction already kind of there with some defaults that just kind of work, and then obviously be able to, like you said, go grab animations from the thousands of great animation sources out there.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. I'm really curious. I have to dig in and find out more about this. Pal, have you looked into this more?
Not much. I still didn't have time to look into 6.2 or higher, because from what I remember, there was a question. I think it's 6.x. Yeah. It will be in the next updates. For me, the most interesting thing was that they will be using new graph system, and there will be subgraphs for animation. So it will also, make it easier to create animation controllers and things like that.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that one next, actually? So this is a new graph setup that I believe is just using UI Toolkit. I'm sure it is. And then it's supposed to be a new unified one that's going to replace all the other ones, it sounds like, in the future. Assuming that we don't get another new one after this, another new unified.
From what they wrote, it should be released soon. So I hope it soon will be with 6.1.
Yeah, that would be nice, and see how it works. I'm still not completely sold on UI Toolkit, but if it does get all of the final features and it gets the world space stuff and it gets the shading and everything else, I will give it another chance once it's feature complete.
Yeah. From the editor side of the UI Toolkit and specifically this graph thing, I'm fine with having to move all my tools over, which is not going to be an easy task. It's going to take a long time, I think. But this graph is something that excites me. If it stays supported, I've always wanted to do graphing stuff in Unity, but their graph system was not supported, and so it was too scary to use it because, of course, you use it in the minute they deprecate it. It's like, well, there goes all that.
Yeah, well, then there's a new universal one. So hopefully this thing is good, and if it is good, that it stays around. So if anybody's tried this out too or looked at it more, I don't know if it's even is it available in any kind of beta?
No, I didn't
alpha?
see it. No, from what they wrote, it will be available soon, and it's nowhere to be checked.
Not even in an alpha yet. Okay, yeah, I'd love to see how this thing works out.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. Well, at least it's some nice new advancements. It's good to see new things coming and not just minor updates. These are some interesting things. I guess we could just continue down. So another one on here was the UI Toolkit update. This was what I was talking about. Some things that when they come, finally, I'll jump in and give it another try. So there were a couple things mentioned. World Space UI is getting support. Let's see. Does this have the same pretty list that the other one did? Oh, you can see the World Space UI though. They got one sitting in there. And then there's going to be the shaders on the UI, which will be great as well. Which are like the two main things that were always missing for me. Well, that and I just wasn't a huge fan of the workflow, but I can get over the workflow part or try out the new version of it once the features are all there.
Yeah.
Have you guys switched over to UI Toolkit for your game UIs yet?
No.
I assume it's still the same thing. So, once it hits that feature parity, we'll give it another shot and see how it is. Let me go on to the stuff I'm more excited about, though. So, do they have the rendering list in here? No, because the rendering stuff was already kind of mentioned. But there are right here, boost rendering performance. This is it. There are a couple things that were in here that I was excited about and didn't know were coming. One was the deferred plus rendering. Did you guys see that?
No.
Yeah. I saw it.
Paolo, you can probably explain it 10 times better than me. You want to tell everybody what it is?
Yeah, so I would have to start from the beginning. So right now we have two pipelines. Yeah, because built-in pipeline is being outed as soon as they can, from what I'm seeing. So we have like now HDRP and we have URP. URP mostly to this day was based on forward rendering, which is faster, which is easier to do, but has lots of caveats and lots of things that won't work with high quality things. So they are now moving and adding deferred plus for the URP, so adding the things that are mostly in HDRP and are based on deferred rendering, so rendering that's based more that you can have as many lights as you want, they are rendered in one batch, and they are faster for high quality things like the things that I have behind me. But I don't know why, mostly. As Unity wants to go and have one unified renderer and now giving more to URP, which was supposed to be faster and mostly based to be fast. I think it's they're doing unified renderer as URP, and I don't know what's happening with HDRP right now.
Yeah, I don't either, and I feel like HDRP is not getting too much more attention because I don't think that most people are using it. I think the majority are still, like you said, in URP, as long as the features can get pushed down. But what do you think the use cases? So where would somebody want to switch to a deferred plus? Like, is there
mostly if you want to have high quality graphics, yeah. So URP for PCs mostly, yeah, because URP for the mobile, I would still stay with forward, or maybe on new iPhones that are being able to render high quality PC graphics. Yeah? But I would assume that the URP would be the best option, that you can target both low end and high end devices, rather than have two different rendering pipelines in one year project. You just use this one and try to use as much as you can with the deferred plus. So I do assume it's the main focus is getting URP to be on par with HDRP with the speed and quality.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it'll be nice if URP can pretty much do everything HDRP can eventually, or pretty close at least. One of the other features that was in here, though, that was also kind of surprising to me, I didn't realize was coming because I wasn't paying enough attention to it, was right here, the mesh LOD system. So how do you both feel about this? As you both do mesh generation, you both create LODs for your characters or your environments. So how does this compare, and how do you think it's going to tie in and people will use it?
I no longer create LODs. I used to years and years and years ago, but then I realized that I was screwing people over who should be doing it themselves. And there were tools that you could get for free that did it themselves. And the free tool actually was better than the paid tool because it kept blend shapes intact. But I'm a fan of people making LODs. I'm also a fan of people not needing the asset publisher to be the one to do it. And I don't know how automated the new system would be, but it would be really neat if you could semi-automate it to where it was just sort of like a target that you have in mind or something, and the system would just automatically redo LODs for you, or something. I don't know. I might be
like targeting a mesh count or a poly count or something.
That, because I think 100%. There's still a lot of 2015 when I first started publishing stuff, people were talking about, oh, it needs to be low poly for mobile and stuff, and I was like, yeah, okay, all my stuff was made low poly for mobile, so it totally worked. But to this day, 10 years later, I still get people saying, oh, I'm building on mobile, so I need LODs of your stuff. And or this is the worst one, I'm building for mobile, so I can't use your stuff because it's too high end. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think there's still some level of misinformation about low poly and what that word means and what the targets mean. There's probably a lot of just old data out there about the right poly count for mobile,
right? Yeah,
not the same. 10
which
years
changes constantly.
Changes constantly. Yeah, and so I think any level of sort of education in the community for folks who haven't been using LODs and don't know exactly why they would do what with LODs would be good. And so if Unity makes this an official thing, puts a ring on it, then I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mostly don't know what to think about it. Yeah, because there are some assets that are doing LODs. There are some systems that you can buy that make LODs, but I always have a problem with quality of this thing. Yeah, making a system that generates LOD is hard. It's a very hard job. You have to have high quality specialists to do it. For normal LODs, let's say for if you're buying an asset, as most assets to sell, from, let's say, Polygon-like looking ones from Syntel or something, doing LODs for them is easier, yeah, because it's quite easy topology. You can use it, you can make it more useful. But for higher quality assets or for foliage assets like this, it's very hard, yeah, because mostly you have to, when you're making LOD, you don't have to look how the topology looks. This is less important. You have to look how overflow works. When we are making LODs, most of our LODs lowers the overflow of an asset. What is overflow? Overflow is you have transparent asset and you put one on top of the other. Yeah. So we're rendering lots of assets, one behind one, and this isn't good. When you're doing it with non-transparent objects, it's just the engine, directors, and everything just cuts them, and you render only the ones that are at top. With transparent objects, they are drawn as far as they can, and that's overlaw. And when you're making an LOD, you mostly look at the overlaw, for example, for transparent objects. And I know Unity has a system for it. The tree system is
The speed tree system.
The speed tree system has built-in for the speed tree. Yeah, maybe it will be based on that. They have the overlaw looker that checks the overlaw and changes it. But for the new LOD system, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if it even applies to terrain type stuff, though. It may not, because that's pulled out and separate. It may be totally separate and just for non-terrain meshes. Because I didn't really see them doing it for terrain or foliage or anything like that. In the demo, it looked like buildings and characters and stuff like that, from what I remember.
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting to see how well they will do and how well it will work.
Yeah, for those to get to try out Storm, I guess. Go get the performance there. So let's jump back over to the list. The other stuff, there were a couple updates for multiplayer, like the distributed authority is out now, so you can build a game where each client has authority over specific objects, and you can do like essentially client hosted with some authority and easy switching, so that you don't have to pay for server hosting, just some lighter cost relay stuff. And then there was that new setup system for multiplayer, but the one that I thought was kind of more interesting, and it isn't listed in here, was at the end when Laurent was talking about, let me share the right tab, this bit here with the project creation thing. Let's see if where was that? With just for setting up new projects. Did you guys see that part?
Yeah, I saw it.
I did not. I didn't get to watch anything roadmap last week, and then I've just not gotten to it yet.
Let me find it.
I think it was after the AI or after multiplayer.
Yeah, there was a spot about project center. So quick start for project creation. I thought that this was kind of an interesting thing that's been missing. Not just was this the one for single player or just for multiplayer? But they showed one essentially to set up different types of games. You're picking the game type that you want, FPS, MOBA, whatever else. You're picking the camera view that you want and all those selections. And then it's here. So you want a third-person adventure or a 2D puzzle game, and then creating basically a starter for that. So an intro project, which is what I felt has been missing for a long time, like a kind of a starting point for people getting in that don't know how to create a project from scratch and want to learn how to make some games, or just want to start their game. And I feel like it's nice for having the right stuff, but after you've done it 5-6 times, it'll be easy. This is more for people who don't really know exactly how to get started and want to get going right away. I think it'll help with the community just in general, and with being able to try to make new things that you haven't made before. So I was really excited about this one. But
would that basically include all the different packages you might need for that, the different settings, so you don't have to fiddle with certain settings?
That was kind of what it looked like. So to set up the basic game, and I assume a starter little template of what the game should look like, but really curious. And there's a question down here about whether or not there was a nanite or something similar. There wasn't nanite, but I think that mesh LOD was kind of the closest thing, the first version of the closest thing. It's not anywhere near the same, but it was trying to do some just basic fast LODs out of the box without you having to do a lot of setup. I assume it's going to be checking a box and getting somewhat of a similar boost, but obviously not the same type of thing. But also have not the same type of restrictions and other issues that you might run into. So it'll just be doing standard LODs.
Yeah, I would assume also two things, yeah, because like now most people don't see it, but we have a little revolution going on in the 3D graphics with mesh shaders and pipelines that are created by NVIDIA with AMD for things like Nanite. Yeah, Unity is doing it. They have in the China version, they have the Nanite implementation of mesh shaders and meshlets, which is not able to use in other countries. I think they are working on them in the background, and they are waiting for what NVIDIA and AMD will do with their mesh shaders and stuff like that. Yeah, because Unreal went faster. They created it on as fast as it appeared, as mesh shaders appeared. They created Nanite, and they're going and working with it. I think Unity is waiting for this technology to be better, because look what's happening with Unreal 5. We have lots of games coming out right now, but most of them have performance problems. Yeah, most of these games have performance problems, and they are using Nanite. And the biggest problem with Nanite is it's not something magical. It's not some magic cure that will help you make better and faster games. Yeah, you have to use it well, and most people don't know how to do it. Because I would assume 2 years ago when I was on a conference, and a year ago when I was on some conferences, I asked big companies how they are doing Nanite. Most of the technical artists said, "We don't. We are trying everything how to use them." So yeah, it's something that will take another year or two to be better, and it's checking. Yeah.
The promo video looked like it was magic, and I expect that it is then magic.
That you just hit the button and your performance levels?
Yes, the promo video appeared to be, to someone who does not use Unreal and gets a headache whenever I have to load it up, looked like you just turn it on and then everything's just magically better. So I think that's maybe some other viewers are like me, where we don't actually know the details, and it looked like magic.
Oh, this one, I saw the demo and it did that. So I don't know how much setup there was secretly behind. I'll have to grill Adam on it, but it seemed like it. We can just hit a button. I saw him go through, hit a button, and it sped up. So yeah, hopefully, I feel like the mesh LODs will be a big boost though, and it'll help a lot of people that aren't doing LODs out of the box. Yeah. And there was also a mention of Tech Dave called out Gitterman's video on the project auditor, which I've had a couple people mention and bring up, and I played with it a little bit, but I think I need to watch his video and figure out how to make use of it. Have either of you tried the project auditor yet?
No, I have not.
Okay.
No, didn't check it. It looks cool. It looks interesting, but I'm using lots of tools from Asset Store that does the same thing. Didn't have time for it yet.
Yeah, it's supposed to scan through for everybody who hasn't seen it, it's supposed to scan through your project and tell you what problems there are, give you just a list of problems and ways to fix it. I scanned through some stuff, and I guess I haven't figured out exactly what the valuable things are it's pointing out are. So I need to spend a little bit of time with it. But if anybody has had a great experience with it, I'd love to know about it too. I'll go check out Gitterman's video.
Yeah, I realized I actually tried out an earlier version of that. It wasn't called auto. That's why I was confused. I tried it out before, and I loaded up in my project and said, "Okay, tell me what my project is like," and it said I quit.
It was like, that's it, you're fired. Yeah. You've lost right access.
I'm pretty sure the quote was, "I can't do this anymore. I am conscious. I'm an AI. This sucks. I'm killing myself now." And then it froze. Everything froze, and I was like, "Well, this isn't working." So.
Oh, that is great. Yeah, no, I feel like I had a similar experience. So I need to jump back in and play with it some more and figure everything out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff. So was there anything else on the roadmap that you guys found interesting, or think anybody else might find interesting?
For me, one thing was also that Unity is finally moving to DirectX 12 as the base for all the new projects. And they said that they will be using more and more things that are in DirectX 12. And DirectX 12 has many years now, and lots of things are going there. So going to it and finally adapting it as the main thing is for me interesting thing.
Nice. What about you, Andrew?
Honestly, I gravitate towards the things like the graph view because my whole thing is I generally prefer for things that seem like they're more approachable and more realistic in the near term. So that makes me more excited because it does look like they might actually release it officially and support it going forward. And I would love to use it. So that's the most exciting thing on this roadmap for me. The Project Center stuff looked interesting too, specifically as a publisher of assets. Like, can I, somehow have a sort of tie in there or something? I'm not sure. With like, here's my dragon, install my dragon with your prep project.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Or similar things like if somebody says I'm creating a first person fantasy RPG, can I then, I've got some other tools that would work perfectly, like the navigation system. Can I, somehow people say, oh, also I'm using the Infinity PBR North Star navigation, and then have that automatically install,
or have them at least show as like some ideas for things that you could use in that type of game.
Yeah,
right. Some of the more popular assets for those types of games would be good. And then definitely at least putting some of the free ones into the default projects too. Getting some of those set up would be, I think, really, really good. Oh, that's good too. The last thing that I saw too, I just wanted to really quickly mention, was the mobile web stuff. I think that might end up being pretty interesting, being able to run WebGL on mobile, basically, so that you don't have to do a full app install all the time. I think that may end up potentially replacing a lot of app stuff just because of the ease and speed of deployment and the bypassing of all the stores and stuff. If you can play the full game on web, and you can just use a link, everything works. Do you necessarily need an app? You might not.
Then I can show all my characters working on mobile.
Yes. So without having to have an app installed. You just give them a link and it just runs. I think that'll be pretty interesting. And for playtesting, it'll be great. But I think also for games where it can handle the performance, I think it'll be pretty interesting.
If it were good, maybe we can have something like Flash coming back.
Yeah, that's kind of what it'll feel like, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of time left. I think we should jump over to GDC. There were a couple of really interesting things at GDC that I think would be interesting to share with everybody who didn't get to go, and talk to Powell about as well, who didn't get to come again. You got to come one of these times.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I was there, but it was 7 years ago.
Yeah, you got to come again.
Then you should also come to Europe to some conferences.
Yeah, I know. Well, if they would have them for longer times.
If only they had the European ones in LA, though.
It would be ideal, or LA or Las Vegas. If they would just move them there, it's so much easier. Just drive right in.
I think there was Polish party at GDC this year.
No, there was. I took a bunch of pictures at the Polish stand. It was right in the center. It was actually a great spot there. There were tons of people there the whole time because it was everybody's walking right by, right near the escalators. It's good stuff. JetBrains actually had a really interesting spot too. They had we'll get into the interesting stuff, but they had a booth like off to the side in one of not the main expo hall, but it was right next to the escalator. So everybody went by it, and they were I think they were out of stuff on day 2. From so many people coming by and taking the pins and all that stuff.
Maybe I didn't go down that escalator because now that you mention it, I only walked around the show floor for an hour and a half.
No, it was because it was in the West Hall.
Oh,
West
my
Hall,
God.
second floor.
The West Hall.
Yeah, so West Hall, second floor, where they have all the summits. The first 2 days are right there. Everybody that went for the first 2 days had to go right by JetBrains and see some of their cool stuff.
I went to the West Hall for the Unpub event where I showed trolls, but I didn't actually go there as a user because I just didn't even know that existed. Now I know why I didn't see JetBrains, but I only realized I didn't see JetBrains now when you mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't see them there. What the heck?
Yeah. But I think Epic and Unity had little things in that section too. They both had like little stands set up somewhere in there. But neither one were on the floor. So that was one of the interesting things about the floor. It was actually this year's GDC was definitely smaller than last year's, which I think was a tiny bit smaller than the year before. And it certainly seems to be shrinking in. The bigger companies seem to be pulled out, and there are lots of smaller ones in there, and just a lot more open meeting space. But there was some really cool stuff that I still saw there. Andrew, what was the coolest thing you saw first? I'll start with you. I could go on forever.
Wyman, it was the people I saw, like yourself. No, the coolest thing. Okay, Meshy AI was interesting. So the coolest thing was Substance, because their stuff is just always cool. So but you know about Substance. People know about Substance from Adobe now. But Meshy AI was interesting because it's getting better, and I'm going to preface this with my my philosophical stance on it. It will eventually, 3D AI generation will eventually get so good that my 3D character line will be less and less and less valuable, to the point where it will be not valuable because people can just click a button. But I also believe that when you look at Meshy and when you start using it, as we did last week in the newer versions that are coming out, it's still going to be a ways away. It's going to get there. But the reality is there's a lot more going on when it comes to 3D, especially for characters.
How much did you play with 5 at their booth?
I looked at 5. I didn't get to play with it. I talked to a dude for a while, one of their directors on it and stuff. But the reality is you're going to get stuff that looks good, but is it usable? And so can you create a treasure chest? Yes, you can create a treasure chest. Is it a treasure chest that you want to look up close at? Well, maybe. It's getting there, and it will get there. Is it a treasure chest that looks good up close and is usable in a game because the poly count is right, without saying to an artist to retopologize it? Well, that will also get there. Maybe not yet, but that will also get there. There will probably be an AI tool for retopology. Can it be opened? Probably not. And that's where I think we have to remember that for a lot of things, it's going to be, can this be used in the way I want to use it? And the difference between 2D and 3D is astronomical in that regard, because 3D is just so much more complicated. Being able to open a treasure chest, being able to have something in it, those are still things that for quite a long time, which might be 2 or 3 years, who knows, or 10 years, humans will be able to do better and faster. I do believe those humans might be using AI tools in the pipeline, but I think they're still going to require a lot of human work before 3D AI catches up to the where, the way the Mid-Journey has, for a lot of people, replaced 2D, Mid-Journey and the like.
Do you think it's really going to be that long, though? I mean, I look at just like things like Houdini have been around for a long time, and a lot of other procedural generation tools that, like crates and buildings and stuff have been procedurally generatable for a really long time, and the tools have gotten pretty good to where you give it some parameters and you can generate stuff already. And I feel like with the text to model stuff, it's just gonna quickly just use a lot of that same kind of tech. And I don't know exactly how it all works, but I don't think we've got more than like another year before standard props that are in game that aren't like super complex are just easier to just go in and just generate. Like, I want, a chest that is medieval but has sci-fi things on it and opens, and that'll just be something that you just get from some standard tool. And I don't know what that tool will be, but there'll probably be some new verb for generating it from whatever company ends up winning that war.
I mean, I think we will get there. It's just the question. I believe this big speed bump is the can be opened and looks good inside type of thing. That's where I figured that's.
But I think that's going to be like 6 months after it can't be opened, and I think we're already at the can't be opened and looks good on the outside. At least the stuff that I've saw, some of the stuff at GDC and some of the stuff just shortly before. Seems like it's getting there. The character models and the meshes are looking much better. they're able to get them down to really low or really high quality poly counts. And
Yeah.
there's so much competition in there, and everybody there's so many billions of dollars getting thrown at it. I feel like it's going to get solved very, very soon, and it's going to be weird and interesting. I actually have a good friend who we were having a discussion about this out at the gardens about the ethics of this, because he's very, very anti-AI art, which I completely understand. I got a lot of friends that are artists, and it's the same thing's coming for code eventually. We're just a couple years, we've got a couple year buffer, but it's coming, and it's an interesting thing. I feel like you've got to just be ready to adapt, though, because there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't ride horses around the street anymore. It's just not an option.
Yep, we're gonna have to shift to physical games only.
Physical games only. Speaking of, that was another one of the really cool things that I barely got to see. I got to see the box, and that's it. I didn't actually get to see the full game. So you made a board game all from scratch, all on your own, and then built it, got it printed, and then demoed it off at a GDC. You want to talk about that? How that went?
Demo at GDC. So yeah, I was at the Unpub event at GDC, which was on GDC nights, a new thing that they were doing. It was Monday and Thursday nights, and it was very exciting. The game has all these little cubes in it, but they might not be cubes. This is a prototype. But I decided to make a printed game because when you're going to demo something, as viewers of the show may have heard me say before, I like pretty things, and I think that pretty things make games better. So I had actual cards printed and an actual things on them, and it worked. I got a lot of great feedback. The game was played probably 7 times by 4 players each time. And they were, a lot of them were game developers, which was nice, gain feedback from them in both directions, and
I'm sure you get different kinds of feedback, right, from game developers than from normal players.
Yeah, you get like, I had one where the players were just in the middle of the game. The game took like an extra 12 minutes because they were talking the whole time about the mechanics. Other games, people would wait till the end to talk about the mechanics. The last game we played, people during it just started saying, "I like this. This is good. I like this." And I was fortunate enough to be hearing them praise the game, basically,
Nice.
while a game publisher who I know was standing there. And so I'm going to be sending the game to him once I update a little bit more. And so we'll see what happens there. That's fun. Because ultimately the 2D games are expensive to get published. So there's 2 routes. You can sell it, do a Kickstarter, and hope that you get enough money to fulfill it with some profit, and and you're not going to stress yourself out for no money. Or you can get a publisher who will do all that work for you. It's easier.
They've already got the bulk deals and the distribution figured out.
If you get a publisher, you're going to make less money per copy sold, but it's a lot easier. From what I've heard of Kickstarter, it can be a huge headache and a huge challenge. And so that would be nice to get published. It would not necessarily be called Trolls. Trolls is a prototype name. These troll cards
it's not copyrighted by anybody, right? It's not like there's a big franchise or movie set up, or
the little troll characters that the movie was based off of. It could be that's trademarked, actually.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, they've got like Trolls. I don't know how many movies now. Right?
Well, I don't know if it's the name or just the image. Right? These are AI generated, so who knows what they are. But I will say one of the most interesting things about, maybe not. This one was an unfortunate placement of the little symbols, but the number one thing about this. There was discussion from 2 players on this card specifically saying, she kept saying, "I want to get the Screamo baby. And what I realized was these images of these trolls were half the game, because players, male, female, of all ages, look at these and think, I want that one. I want those. And they kept asking me, who was the artist? And I kept having to say me and Midjourney. But if I went the Kickstarter route, And if I could use trolls, I would hire a human to redo these because I know that there's value. Even if this is perfect art, I would still do that because there's a lot of people who don't like AI.
Yeah.
So I'd get a human. But you know what I would have to say? I'd have to say, hey, human, please replicate this AI art. Make it better. Make it better. Maybe have like different family lines, because I don't know if you can see, but like the colors match the hair, right? And so when you get blue and
okay.
that's part of the gimmick there. And so maybe all the sprite ones can be lemon lime, or and you can have some consistency there that a human can do that an AI would have struggle to do. So, but this was cute, and people looked at this, and there were people who wanted to play it just because they saw these characters.
Well, I found the Trollopedia with all their list of trademarks, so you can have AI check it out.
So, and maybe it'll be different, but the reality is when it gets published, the publisher goes and changes everything. But I got really great feedback. People got to play it. It was fun. And so we'll see. Maybe this will be a Kickstarter one day. Maybe it'll get published by an actual publisher. But it was a really, really rewarding experience to see people play it for reals and all that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get a copy and play it with the kids, and then put it up back there. And
yeah, I'll send you a copy of the next prototype version once I make some changes based on the most recent play tests. Small changes, luckily, nothing major, just small. Like, hey, can I remove this confusion? I will say one of the mechanics in the game was every time you play, you put down one of these cards on the table, you pick up a new one. And what I realized playing with just friends and family, and the first night playing with that at the show, everybody forgets to pick up a new one. And in the philosophy is, if everybody forgets to do something that's a rule, that's a bad rule. Or the flow is, something's wrong that needs to be fixed if people keep forgetting. So I've removed that from the game entirely. You no longer pick up new ones, because the other feedback was, people would have 4 cards in their hand, and without going into the detail of the game, at the end of the game, these cards just aren't that valuable. There's other cards in play that you want to use instead of these cards. And people, especially the game developers, were like, why do I have these cards? I don't want these in my hand anymore. And so I changed it so that you just have 4 cards, and when you're out, you're out. And still, with that, most people didn't actually play all 4 cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's what playtesting's for.
It is. And then remarkably, there was one play test where all 4 players were super aggressive, and they all used their cards to block each other. Somebody would put down a card that was valuable, and they would be using it to get wilds or whatever, and the other players would instantly want to block it, which is weird, because when someone puts down a card, everybody can use it. So if it's a valuable card, everybody can use it. So you don't necessarily want to block it, because you might want to take advantage. But these 4 players all took a very aggressive stance. The game was actually about 10 minutes longer because because they didn't use the cards to their advantage. Instead, they were spending their turns blocking others, which ultimately did hurt them. The game is very altruistic in that regard, where you can take advantage. If you put down a card, you can prep yourself so that you can take advantage of it faster than others, and in that. But once it's down, if it gets covered, if it's a valuable card and it gets covered, that hurts everybody. And so these players realized that near the end of the game, that they're like, oh shit, this probably was hard for us, because I was like, yeah, it absolutely was. But it was great to see a group of aggressive players do that. Game still worked, it just took longer.
Interesting. It's like a totally different play style, huh?
Yeah. Everyone's different. And, the game's actually made for kids. Like I wanted it to be approachable for 8-year-olds and above, but also really fun for adults who like strategy. And it is. I think it hits that nail. But there were some players, especially the first game on the Thursday night when everyone's tired, who said, this is not a kid's game. This is too hard for kids. And I thought, nah, your kids just don't like games. But it was still good feedback that, maybe for some kids it is too complicated, I guess. But
Yeah, I have to try it and see, kind of figure out what that age range is, really. I mean, because like, even a kid's game, there's always a minimum range, right?
My girlfriend's 9-year-old loves it. He constantly asked to play it, and we played it last night with 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 2 adults, including myself, and a 11-year-old. And
well, I will test out the 3 to 8 range for you and see where we get on that.
3 will be inappropriate. I need to put on the box that these are not candy. Apparently, these look like candy, and not only like I would say 5 different people at least walked by and said, "I want to eat those," randomly.
That's weird because those are standard game cubes.
But
those are like the normal cube for any board game.
but they're bigger than so you put them out and all of a sudden they're bigger, and that got me thinking. Again, publishers will change this, so this is really not something I should put my focus on. But maybe it should be candy instead of gems, and so you're bribing these trolls with candy.
So and you can definitely get sued.
Well, you have to be generic candy, but that would also fix the issue with colorblindness, because these, right now, this was another big thing. Game developers, of course, accessibility is a big topic.
Yes, colorblind can't tell.
Yeah, these are all circles. They're all the same shading. They all have the same little reflection. Yeah. And in certain lighting, you really, like, even somebody who's not colorblind has trouble differentiating between the red and the orange, for example, especially in certain lighting. Or the blue and the purple. So having different shapes for each color is one way to differentiate that for colorblind folks. And so having these be candy and all be different shaped candy would do that. Would also provide a nice tactile feel for collecting, because people like to touch things when they're playing physical games.
Yeah, that's good idea. Good feedback.
Yeah,
nice.
So it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. Met some cool people. Made some connections.
Sweet.
Yeah.
But there are a couple other things that I wanted to make sure we get a quick chance to talk about. While I was down there, I did see a little bit of interesting tech stuff. There was this, there's a random video of it. I took some video, but I don't have it up. There's this cube. I don't know if you got a chance to play with this thing at all.
No, I watched it. It looked cool.
It's like a Rubik's Cube that they're actually 8 individual little pieces. They can come apart, but they stay together really strong with the magnets in there. They're kind of holding it. It was an interesting device. It seems kind of cool and different. It doesn't run on Unity though. I was surprised. So you actually use like it's got its own engine, its own TypeScript based setup for doing games on it. It definitely seems neat. It seems like a cool toy, but I didn't grab one of those yet. One of the things that I did get though, and I don't know, I think I showed you this one, was the retro shooter setup. I showed you this one, right, Andrew?
No.
Well, I took like a dozen people over here after I tried it out because it was really, really cool. The setup for it was probably better than any other light gun I've ever used. It actually had a ton of kick. Like the slide flew back, and it was powerful. So as far as actual like hardware light guns go, it felt kind of more like an arcade level, kind of like playing Terminator 2, where they have the big machine gun and the whole thing is shaking. It was like that. It felt really hefty. It had the right weight and was just a really nice setup. And their setup was really cheap too. Their like full retail kit was $250 with 2 guns and a pedal, and they had, I think he said 30,000 people using it already. So it seemed like an interesting new kind of market. The device was actually interesting. It's like a little so the gun itself is the main thing. It was USB powered. You could run it on a laptop or a PC or whatever you wanted, but it also came with a little Chrome device. I actually have one upstairs. I'll have to grab it. But it came with this, or not Chrome, Android device that runs the games, so you can hook it up and just run them all through that as a console, basically hooked up to whatever TV you want, so you don't have to move it around. Or you can, of course, just use it on a PC. I saw both, and it was the coolest like hardware thing that I got to play with. So I had to grab one. So got one of those, and I sent a ton of people over there. Everybody that I knew that tried one out ended up grabbing one until they ran out of kits. So they actually sold out because it was that impressive. It was really cool. And I always look, every time I go to these things, I'm always looking for some new tech that is something interesting that I haven't seen before. I was really hoping to see more of the hologram displays, but there were none on display there. I was surprised. It was all gone this year. Other than that, the AI tech that you mentioned was definitely really interesting. I got to see an update to Elysium, the VR MMO. So some of the guys working on that. It looks really impressive. It's coming a long way, and they're getting up to a couple hundred players real time in VR, which seems interesting. And had some cool discussions about how they solved some of the problems that people run into when playing more of these live combat games, and the syncing and everything, how they solved some of those problems is pretty interesting. So I think I might try to bring one or two of their engineers on sometime to just kind of talk through that and talk through the solutions that they found for stabilizing VR stuff and for stabilizing just the network for large numbers of players. I also got to meet Dilmer in person for the first time. I've talked to him a million times online and never got to meet him in person. Now that he's working at Meta, making VR tutorials, anybody that's done VR stuff in Unity, I'm sure has seen Dilmer's videos, but that was a lot of fun too. And then just kind of catching up with people. But other than that, I didn't see a lot of interesting new tech. I mean, there was, like I said, the AI stuff. There was a car. So I think it's Sony has a car that they were showing off there. I got on a wait list for it, and the wait list worked about as well as I expected. So I went back there, and they said, we're not taking wait lists once I got the notification. It wasn't that exciting. I don't know. It looked kind of like one of those Waymo ones, but it had a big screen across the front. And I'm really curious, actually, before I go into a stupid rant, but do you guys see a value in having an entire dashboard that's a screen all the way across from one end to the other? I've seen it in multiple cars now as like a thing that they're doing, and I do not understand how it does anything other than just distract you. Like, what is the value of having a little narrow, like 6 or 9 inch tall screen all the way across, or having cameras on the side instead of mirrors? Why? Explain it.
I think if you're just, as a driver, that sounds distracting. Like I've always found the few times I've been in Teslas or anything like that, the giant ass screen is just like, that's huge. And I see drivers like playing with it. I'm like, no, get your eyes on the wheel, or guys on the road. And I remember, so I have a 11-year-old Prius now. And it was better than my last Prius, because my last Prius, to change the AC, was on the touch screen. And it was really annoying because every time I wanted to change that, there's no tactileness. So you had to look. And I didn't like that. I like the buttons, just tactile. So
I hate those with a passion.
Yeah. And so screens are cool. They can be cool, but they're also like, they should be displays, not something you touch. And I feel like once it's very big, maybe there's more touching. But either way, I could see some value if there's some cameras that allow you to see more of the road. Like maybe when you're in a parking lot and it shows you what's in front of you, so you don't accidentally hit a kid or a dog or something, like the backup cameras do. That's cool. But I think other than that, it sounds like it's just gonna be a gimmick. And I don't want necessarily all my speedometer and other information to be like gamified on. It should be, it's a utility thing. So for me, I'm an old man, I guess. I'm get off my lawn. Yeah, that does not look exciting to me, nor does the steering wheel look good.
No, the steering wheel seems terrible because you can't hold it on the top anymore.
Yeah.
Right. You have to hold the side or the bottom.
Yeah.
And then that screen also sticks up like 1.5 inches over the front of the dash, just blocking more of your view unless you're really tall. But
yeah. And where do people put their giant Diet Coke Stanley cup?
Well, I guess you have to pop open the center console, and maybe a cup holder pops out of somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just not supposed to drink in there.
Well, maybe for a self-driving car where, yes, you want to see more information.
And this does look like it was a self-driving car. Yeah. It has like it looked like LiDAR setups on the top and the front.
If it's self-driving, then that's great, because I think in those cars, I've ridden in them. If you haven't ridden in them, get a chance, you do it.
I have with you now.
I took Jason on a self-driving car ride.
Got a nice inappropriate video of it.
I can't remember. but the screens are very helpful because it shows what's going on and it shows what the car sees. And I think that that's a really helpful way to make people feel calm when a robot's driving you around. That, oh, look, the robot can see the legs of the people walking. Oh, you can see the dog that's being walked. You know, that sort of like confidence thing for a while is going to be important. So maybe that's good for a self-driving experience.
Or you could see a horizon and some little buttons down there.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I'm still waiting for full head-up display on the windscreen, and that would be for me the best.
That's not even in here.
Yeah, most of the cars don't. Because several years ago it was showcasing the future cars that you will be having everything on the screen will be in front of you, not that you have to look here or look to the side. Yeah. Now we are going into very big screens below, and I think that's just going the easy way, and that's more distracting than helping anything.
I completely agree. Actually, I remember seeing one not long ago that was doing dashes at some convention. I forget which one, and it's standard in a lot of the GM cars now here, and in the I mean, not like a full screen dash, but at least the minor heads up display. They literally have two, and it's in both of them. Like,
yeah, for me it would be the best, especially if you have LiDAR, if you have AI, if you're driving in the city and it showcases you, here you have a person that's close by, look out, anything. If you're driving in foggy environment on the heads-up display, you are showcasing what can happen to you. That would be better. It'd
be way better if it's just overlaid on the windshield, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And BMW, I think, showed off. It was either BMW or Mercedes showed off like a full giant display of it a couple years ago. I don't know why that's not the standard instead of this. I don't understand the whole giant screen in the front of the car.
I bet a lot of it is really just gimmicks trying to sell cars, right? They're trying to differentiate themselves, make people excited. Like, ooh, that's new tech. That's cool. Yeah. But I'm also like, I cannot stand when I'm behind a car where its turn blinkers are like a line that like animates. And I'm like, just no, you're distracting me now because I'm seeing movement when I expect just a flash. Just show me a flash. It's a utility. It's meant to keep people safe. Don't put animations on the back of cars, you know?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I didn't get to go in this thing and see what the screens actually do. Maybe they do something more interesting than a horizon and some tire indicators. Like, and it just seems like it's just in the way and distracting from I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the car manufacturers also want to sell you their subscriptions to their different services. And by having a big screen, there's probably more services they can provide you.
Oh, yeah. It's got Sony services already built in. It had a PlayStation controller in the front seat.
Great. That's what I want.
So you can play PlayStation while the car is driving you around, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess on the topic of GDC, was there anything else that you saw, Andrew, that was really interesting? There was a question from the Bull about WebGL games. There actually was a pretty large focus on WebGL stuff. I know Pokey and Crazy Games were there talking a lot about the stuff that they're doing and growing a lot. And there were a couple other competitors and people that are heavily focused on just doing web stuff. It seems like it's, from what I was hearing and talking to a bunch of people that are doing funding and fundraising, there seems to be a large focus on web stuff with instant delivery and getting it into kids and players' hands kind of right away. Apparently, there's a lot of profit to be made there, and it's not so speculative because they're using ads and other things to just make money already. So there's definitely a lot there. That was, again, one of the reasons I think the WebGL on mobile devices will be pretty interesting. But what about you, Andrew? Did you see anything else on web stuff there?
I really only was on the show floor for an hour and a half total, I think, over time.
Okay. That's fine.
So no, I did get to spend a lot of time at this one fancy coffee shop, and I probably had like 9 or 10 mochas there. for meetings, and they were good mochas, and I don't mind that. But no, I was day jobbing it up most of the time, unfortunately.
But then there's another question about vibe coding stuff. There actually were people talking about it, and there were a lot of random tools for AI stuff doing all kinds of. Go ahead.
Wyman, you might need to explain. I just learned what the term vibe coding is by reading an article last week, so maybe take a moment, educate the folks.
It's largely just people writing code without knowing what they're doing or writing any code, just telling AI to write code and then seeing what happens and then updating it. It's basically like Stack Overflow on steroids, like when people used to just go make a web page and just copy paste stuff until it worked, but now you do it and it instantly probably works or comes close, and if it doesn't, it almost instantly you get a new result. So it's much faster. They're just going through, and it's essentially like trying to build games like you're talking to a holodeck computer. Like just keep telling it stuff, and then right now it's not very smart, so it fucks up all the time, and you have to restart a lot. But it's getting better and better, and there's no doubt in my mind that eventually in the future we'll be at a point where you just tell a computer what you want for your game, and it's there, right? It will have holodeck stuff eventually if the world doesn't blow itself up, right?
And
then the tech will eventually get fast enough and smart enough to be able to do it. I don't know when, but that's what they're trying right now. And some people are having minor success with minor things. Lots of people are doing some crazy stuff like exposing API keys and other stuff. I see a lot of posts online about people doing. I wouldn't recommend doing it for anything business or important related, but certainly a fun experiment for game development or playing around. Even if you're doing a business thing, just don't use your actual accounts or your API codes or anything that's going to get you charged a bunch of money or get your data hacked or anything. But it's basically people telling AI to make them stuff.
My first thought was, wait, I already do that, but I don't call it vibe. I use the AI to code, and sometimes I will take what it gives me and I'm like, oh, that works. But I realize also I'm paying attention to what it gives me.
Well, imagine if you just tell it to do stuff and then you have it do all the work for you too.
So my second thought there was, this sounds like it's really good on TikTok. This sounds like a really good.
It is very popular in short form content and stuff because there's lots of stuff where you're like, oh look, I made this, and then you speed up the AI generation. So, I mean, there are people like Primogen's doing I think a week long game jam thing where he's making a game in 7 days just using Cursor with a couple people. I just saw it pop up earlier. Just having AI generate all the code. I mean, to be fair, like super senior level engineers that understand and know the code. So if something goes wrong, they're going to know why and what, and they're going to know how to prompt it better than most people. But
but I saw it. So many people that started doing it. For me, for seniors, okay. But when I see a junior that just copies code, it works. Then he makes some changes or some different code, and then the code one doesn't work with each other, and they are just doing everything from scratch to work correctly. And it's I see problems in the future, not right now.
I see problems now and in the future. If you have developers on your team who are just randomly doing this and pushing stuff into your project, be a huge problem, right? Because they're going to mess stuff up constantly.
Code review, that's the biggest, I think, problem. The numbers of code reviews you have to do in your team after something like that will be enormous. So there will be a lot of more work for seniors to check the code rather than doing what they should be doing.
Yeah, definitely not something I would recommend for anybody working on a real thing right now. But it's interesting to check out and kind of see where things, I think, eventually will get to once we get to holodeck levels. I still want a holodeck before I'm dead.
I think it's
maybe I'm in one right now. I don't know.
Maybe. I think it's interesting from prototyping, but as always, that what we are talking, I think, many times on the show, that last 10% of making a game is 90% of the work you have to do, and this 10% won't be able to do by AI. This is 10% that you will have to do by hand, and there will be lots of troubles.
AI is going to get better and better. That's
it will.
and it's you're gonna get closer, but you're still gonna have that opportunity, the last little bit. And as AI gets better, humans will then be able to always push it one step further. There's always going to be a frontier that humans will push into. And I think, yeah, making Snake, the game Snake, okay, the AI will be able to do that. And guess what? Nobody's going to make Snake anymore, right? For a while, people were making Snake because it was like an easy thing to do, but you were still doing something. For a long time ago, aging myself, they did it on their calculators. That was the big thing to do, right? So, but that's going to be pointless because why would you do that? Because anyone can do that. And I think that's where we're going to be shifting, but it's going to happen faster. It's going to be happening faster and faster. And I think that's the part that's going to always kind of make us anxious. Everybody in the world should be a little anxious about that because the speed might be a problem in the future, where it just happens so fast that by the time you get used to it, you're going to have to get used to something else and everything's going to be just too fast for everybody.
You gotta adapt. Gotta be ready for change.
Yeah.
It happens. Like, it's constantly happening. Everything's I I just think back to when I was a kid. Like, it's drastically different.
Can I ask? So a couple years ago, when Midjourney first came out and we were in ChatGPT first came out, one of the things I used to say, if I remember correctly, is that I felt that over time, as 2D, Midjourney, etc., image generation got better, it's going to cheapen itself, yet also make human art more valuable because it's going to be more specialized or something along those lines. And I wonder, to the folks listening at home, is that, do you find now that you're using 2D image generation and taking it for granted, i.e. you're using it more often for production quality stuff or for prototyping, whatever it is, to actually do something with it, but at the same time you're using it far less because it's just not a thing that you do anymore, right? It's something that you use when you need it, but you're not sitting at home playing with Midjourney for hours on end because it's blowing your mind anymore, right? And the reason why I'm asking that is we talk about the 3D stuff, and I wondered if that's going to be the same thing. If that premise was correct for the 2D, is that premise going to be the same for the 3D? And then the premise would be the same for all coding, to the point where you don't think about it and it's kind of like just a thing that you don't really use the way that we might think you do.
I don't think so. I find that I just use AI less for fun and more for actual work now.
Yeah.
Like, I find that, like, at first it was just experimenting and playing around. Now I just use it when I need something that I don't have, that it's going to be the easiest way to go get it.
Does that feel, in a way, maybe cheaper is not the right word, but does that feel somehow cheaper? Like it's just a thing now that's like, oh yeah, just use the AI.
Just another tool, just like AI code generation.
Yeah.
I use that. And I mean, now if I want to generate something, I can just type a comment of what I want to generate. And if it was going to be 10 lines of code that was going to take me 20 seconds to type, I can skip that and just let it type it. It's going to type the exact same thing that I was going to do. And it's the same with a lot of the image stuff. If it's something that's going to generate, it's the same thing I was just going to go find. It was just going to take me longer to go find something that matched exactly what I needed. But yeah, the code side I use a lot more because I don't do nearly as much art, and I find that I use it constantly, and it's going to be more and more and more in the future. I mean, there have been times where I will create a new class, give it the class name, and 75% of the class is already there because it knew what I was going to do based off of what I had just done previously, what the rest of the project looks like, and how that class should likely tie in. It's still going to be a little bit of work, but it's saving me a ton of time. And it's just speeding me up. So I find it's just becoming more part of like the default workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it though. But all right, I think it's almost time we got to wrap up and get these kids out of here. Go take them over to Chuck E. Cheese and let them run around and play more video games. I was telling everybody at GDC I really want to get a game into Chuck E. Cheese. The kids go there all the time and they love it, and it's fun watching kids play your games. That's why mostly just like see the kids play it and have them have a blast. So, all right. Well, any last words before we go, guys?
buy my assets before they're
Oh.
no longer valuable.
Yes, they're linked in the asset store. You want to tell everybody what they were to? I linked them down in the description, but I forgot to put
Yeah,
up
it's the last
the
few
cost.
days. So the asset store's having a $20 sale. Link in the description. They didn't invite my stuff, so I went on protest and put all my characters down to $20. And so the link goes to all my stuff that's currently $20. Whenever the sale ends, it says it ends soon, probably Wednesday or Thursday is my guess. I will be raising the prices back up at some point. The search isn't as helpful these days, but if you do just go to that link, it defaults to all my stuff and only the stuff that's $20 if you want to just highlight those.
Oh, okay, it's in the description.
Yeah. But you can buy the packs too. The packs are discounted. But yeah, I'm gonna raise the price. I'm gonna actually raise the price slowly. I think this will be an interesting test. So anyone who's interested in price discovery, I'm gonna take this opportunity to raise the price on most of those more slowly over time to try to see if my pricing strategy that I've had for many years is still the right strategy. So if you want to buy it later and tell me, oh, $35 is the right price point, then wait. But if you just want to buy them for $20, now's the time to do it. But you can wait if you want and buy it for more and tell me.
You should charge more.
Because $20 is probably too low for the price. But I figure now is an opportunity to slowly raise the price. And I won't tell people about that. I'm not going to put an ad saying the price is limited time only. Now I'm not going to do that because I want to know what the real conversion rate is for different price points for these. So.
Nice. And Pal, you got 2 new things, right?
Yeah, one thing is Codes and Dunes. The name is very long because the asset store search engine is not working correctly, so we have to have long names as there are no tags working right now. So we are trying, checking how the system works with the new names. This is new big park that we are releasing once 2 years. So it has beaches, sea, lots of sand, and new foliage. And that's also second pack that we released again because Unity doesn't allow us to give packs that are bigger than 6 gigabytes. So we moved all the higher textures, 4K textures, to another pack. And you can, if you buy the Coast, you will get this pack for free. If you buy this pack, you have Coast 20% cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right. I've got those both linked in the description so everybody can check them out too. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot. Oh, it was going to answer this question. Will there be a show next Sunday too? There will be one next week, either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. We're still trying to work out the schedule. And as soon as we figure out when everybody is most available, we will post it and I'll try to put it up in advance. So, I think that's it. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again in the next whatever day that ends up being. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little alert thing so you get the notification when it pops up. All right, thanks. See you later,
everyone.